torturous run into Avila Beach in San Luis Obispo County.
Yes, there's the contour for you. The big hill has already passed by. The climb up San Marcos Pass there. It was run by the leader in the King of the Mountains, the American Carter Jones, who scrambled up to the three-man breakaway. Thomas de Gent and Junkai Feng who were up there. This is back to the start this morning with all the coloured leaders' jerseys on the front line. And then the rollout as well as they headed out. Just a short neutralised section away from Santa Barbara. Then they tickled up the side of Highway 101, which is the main road running up to San Francisco, before they went on to the Californian Highway 157 and over the pass.
Yes, through some very nice countryside to begin with as well, including going past the old Fess Parker vineyard. Fess Parker played Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone in the 1960s and 70s. And this area is very well renowned for its Pinot Noirs and wonderful Chardonnays.
Indeed, and Fess Parker owns half of the county too. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2010. So this is the breakaway then. They went virtually from the gun and they consolidated on the climb of the San Marcos Pass. Thomas de Gent, third last year in the Giro d'Italia. Feng, the Taiwan rider on champion system. And Carter Jones realised what was going on, got across to them after a chase, and did himself the world of good, getting maximum points over the top of the pass, beginning to make that polka dot jersey as leader of the King of the Mountains his. One more big day to worry though on Saturday.
Well, Thomas de Gent just went through the sprint point there in the town of Orcutt, which actually earns its name after William Orcutt, who is regarded by most people in petroleum as the dean of petroleum geologists. This is a very, very big petroleum area.
But the talking point, I think, Paul, is the tricky finish as we get down to a first-time visit in the tourist town of Avila Beach. It's a downhill speed run towards the town, and then there's some tricky 90-degree bends. And the last 200 meters where we make the final left-hand turn, it's then uphill to the finishing line. It will be quite difficult.
Well, quite difficult and quite dramatic, I would have to say, because the last 3 kilometers is pretty much, as you said, downhill into the outskirts of the town of Avila Beach. And then they've got a sharp 90-degree right-hand bend, a left-hand bend at 90 degrees as well, and it kicks up towards the finish line. You've got to be in the first 3 or 4 riders around those last 2 right-angle bends if you want any chance of winning at all. We've heard from Team Garmin Sharp. They are looking to try and get the victory they can, if they can again, for the 2nd day in a row with their man. Obviously, their man Tyler Farrar getting a lot of confidence by beating Peter Sagan yesterday. But I think looking at the run into the finish, if Sagan gets his positioning right, it's going to be very difficult to beat him on a run in towards the finish. You can see the long line there of Orica Green Edge riders. It's also the kind of finish for a man like Michael Matthews, because you've got to be fairly acrobatic on the bike. There's the darker green jersey, which is now the only leader's jersey that changed yesterday. Peter Sagan now leads the sprint competition. Just behind him, Juan Antonio Fletcher in the slightly pale blue jersey of Vacances Soleil.
1 or 2, I think, a little bit more relaxed faces out there at the moment, Paul. There has been one retirement today, by the way. I'm sorry to say, Jonathan Cantwell, who crashed on the hottest day of the race. And rather bizarrely, the road was so hot, he suffered quite a high degree of skin burn.
Yeah, that was the day when the reflected heat off the road surface was 125 degrees Fahrenheit, or 50 degrees Celsius.
Yes, and that was a real shame with Jonathan Cantwell. He comes from Queensland, he's used to hot weather, but I think even that was a bit high for him. And so, you know, the burns were all over his body, Paul. It was quite remarkable how he even continued. He just ripped all his skin off like it was burnt lightly. They're quite serious burns. Well, he abandoned after the start of the race this morning.
Yeah, but I think, Phil, it's pretty amazing he managed to carry on with those burns for 2 more days before pulling out today. He really was ripped up badly because of that crash, and added to that, the burns were quite horrendous. But these bike riders are tough men, and obviously they do not want to abandon a race. Nobody wants to. They want to try and get to the finish of any stage race they participate in. Here, just looking at Thomas de Gent. Rose to prominence really last year when he finished 3rd overall in the Giro d'Italia, winning one of the real queen stages to the summit of the great Stelvio mountain at 2,600 meters in altitude. This is Feng Junkai from the Champion Systems Pro Cycling team, a team which has been put together to really develop and promote China from Asian cycling, I should say. The man who's made the bet operations, Carter Jones there, he managed to get himself across the gap. The other two riders started the breakaway. He saw this as a great opportunity, rode across the gap and got himself maximum points at the summit of San Marcos Pass. It's going to be very difficult for anybody in this race now to beat him, although it is still possible for him to lose that lead, but he made a good operation this afternoon. Those black jerseys are the James Hagens Berman squad. They're the squad of the overall leader. There he is in the yellow jersey. Hanier Acevedo from Colombia, a very, very good climber. There you see a red-tailed kite just down there, making his way away from our helicopter. But cameraman once again doing a very good job of picking up some of the wildlife that we've managed to spot throughout this magnificent state of California. There's 70 kilometers to go, and once we got over the summit of that big pass of the day, the San Marcos Pass, we started to get the organization of the teams of the sprinters, making sure they pegged back that gap, which had climbed up to around about the 9-minute margin. We pulled it back to 4 minutes, and now slowly but surely, as we get closer to the finish line, I think we'll start to see the sprinters in complete control of this race, because tomorrow is the individual time trial. The sprinters will have to take a back seat, and the day after that is the final mountaintop finish of this year's Amgen Tour of California, to the rather scarily named Mount Diablo, or the Mountain of the Devil. That's when the next two big showdowns will come. The riders make a long transfer up through the north of the state after this race finishes, around about 200 miles, 300 kilometers of transfer to get up to San Jose for the 30-kilometer individual time trial tomorrow. That could be the day when the men in red and black start to move forward. That's Yvon Madiot there, we're just looking at. His brother Marc Madiot is the big team manager of this squad. No, it's not. I didn't think it was Yvon Madiot. It's not Yvon Madiot. Sorry, this is Peter Sagan on the bike, and he's talking to his team manager there. Looked very much like Yvon Madiot, but wrong team. So this is the big agricultural part of the state, right the way up through this middle valley, all the way along Highway 101. On either side, you've got agriculture. This is the face of TJ Van Garderen eating, with the dark glasses and the blue arms on them. He knows tomorrow is a very, very important day for him. He's a good rider in the individual time trial, but the time trial may well be a big battle between him and Hanier Acevedo, because it finishes with a 4-kilometer climb to the top. We've left the county of Santa Barbara this morning. Santa Barbara, a long way behind us, moved over the San Marcos Pass. We're now moving into the county of San Luis Obispo, which is very much renowned for its wines. And as you can see, this really is the garden of California, all the way up and down here, but only made possible really by the fact that there's an awful lot of water stored in the dams which are speckled around the Sierras here, and they've made a good job of that over the last 30 or 40 years, the state of California, which is in fact a very, very dry state. Fortunately, over towards the east of the state, they've got access to the Colorado River. Well, coming down to 3:15, no panic for the sprinters teams for the moment. They're just leaving those men out there to fry on what is an ideal racing temperature this afternoon. It's about 23 degrees Celsius.
Chris Baldwin, who has started all 8 races here in the Amgen Tour of California, the only time he never reached the finishing line back in 2008.
I think a lot of these riders, Phil, if you look at the flags over to the left-hand side, and you can see the flags buffeting, they're going to have to be very, very careful. You can see them forming a diagonal line. If one of the teams wants to come forward right now, they could rip this race to pieces because of these crosswinds. And strangely enough, because of the fact that this is the first time the race has gone from south to north, the riders have very often picked up this cross headwind, and that's very dangerous in situations like this, especially if somebody decides to start using just half of the road.
That's right, because we're more or less in slightly off course in a south, north-northwest direction today, so they are catching crosswinds rather than headwinds. But it's not, in all fairness, a very strong day for winds. But funnily enough, as they come down to the beach where they finish, they will race straight into the headwind, and it'll be cross as they race up to the finishing line. and it's blowing in off the ocean here. It really is a beautiful little cove down here at Vila Beach, and I'm sure we'll see good pictures of it later on from the helicopter. Little bit of action. This is Gregor Gazvoda of the Champion System Pro Cycling Team, just checking in with the team management and taking a few drinks. But the temperature is perfect today. It's, in fact, if anything, it's a little bit chilly, but the riders will think it's wonderful.
Just spotted the riders in the lime green jerseys there, moving up the outside of the echelon of riders, and they're trying to look after Peter Sagan. I have to say, Phil, it's a dodgy finish into the town here. Very exciting if you're a sprinter, but you've got to take a few risks. There are two 90-degree bends inside of the last 400 meters, and I would say you've got to be in the first 3 or 4 riders around those two bends if you want to have any thought at all of winning the stage.
Absolutely right. And well, we'll see. But for me, that's a perfect finish for Peter Sagan if, of course, he gets himself in the right position. He's been out of position the last 2 days. He made amends in the first one. He won on stage 3, but yesterday he could not recover. And at the time when he attacked on the back wheel of Jens Voigt approaching the finish, I did say then it looked as though he could risk here using the vital energy for the finish. Maybe that's what happened, because he never recovered from his finish yesterday.
But just 23 years of age, he's been such a successful professional bike rider over the last few seasons. He's allowed, I think, at 23 years of age to make a mistake every now and again, and I think that was a bit of youthful enthusiasm. And who knows, that climb with 11 kilometers to go yesterday was in the ideal position to quite possibly move out of the pack and have a small breakaway go clear.
Well, we'll see if Sagan can get his 10th historical stage victory today in the Amgen Tour of California. He's got 9 under the belt and 1 this week.
Well, you just saw a quick glimpse of the profile there. We've seen most of the difficulties now are a long way behind us. Well, Peter Sagan has had 9 victories so far this season. He's only beaten in the most successful rider competition by Mark Cavendish, who got himself a stage victory in the Giro d'Italia today to bring himself up to 10 overall wins. It may well be that Peter Sagan today will draw even again with Cavendish. Sagan, since he turned professional back in 2009, has already won 51 races. A very successful professional, and he won 19 races last year, including 5 stages of the Amgen Tour. Just looking there at number 82, Philip Dijkman. He really was a phenomenal rider when we went up to the tramway just outside of Palm Springs. He had no fear of the reputations of the riders on the World Tour teams at all and went out on the attack. But the man who got the stage victory is the man there in the yellow jersey, and that is Jaime Acevedo. He's held on to that overall lead ever since then. Only slim advantage, just 12 seconds over TJ Van Garderen, 27 seconds over Phil Dijkman of Ireland and of United Healthcare. We can see the nervousness now in this main field, and that is all because of this crosswind, which is starting to buffet the riders a fraction. Back with the leaders, Thomas de Gent. It's been announced just yesterday. It was announced that Vacances Soleil will no longer be sponsoring this team towards the end of the year, and they're out looking for a sponsor. Although there are rumors in the marketplace they may well have a replacement sponsor to be announced before the start of the Tour de France this year.
Just looking here from the helicopter, the long straight road, and right at the top of our picture we move 2 minutes 50 seconds forwards, and that's where the 3 riders are. Not the road which is very good for a breakaway just now, as we see a number of teams anxious to bring this race back together. We're sort of shadowing Highway 101, which is the main road from south to north, depends where you're going, from north to south. And we're around about, I suppose, when we get to the finishing line today, we're just on 200 miles south of San Francisco as we continue our journey over the Bay Bridge and into Santa Rosa today. There's the champion, number 63 of the USA. He'll be trying to defend his professional championship, which is on June the 2nd in Tennessee, in Chattanooga. And he's got his eye on that. He says it's a tough course, and he's looking forward to it. And let's hope. He's had a bad accident this year. He seems to be now riding himself back in.
Yeah, he first returned back to competition in the recent Tour of Turkey, and he'll be using this race to try and fine edge his form to try and get himself that national championships. But here he's also got another thing to do in this race, because he's looking after Michael Rogers, who won this race back in 2010, and Rogers is currently sitting in 5th place in the overall standings. And don't ever forget that Michael Rogers is a 3-time world time trial champion, and tomorrow is the individual time trial, so he could move up a little higher in the standings.
That's right, he's 55 seconds off the lead, and if Michael's going to improve on that, he needs a good ride tomorrow in the time trial, and it's not an easy time trial. It has a nasty hill which brings them up to the finishing line. Very difficult time trial.
Well, as I said earlier, this is the agricultural heart of California. Nice to see those Angus beef cattle over to the left-hand side there. Obviously, a lot of agricultural industry right the way up through the middle of this valley. Just looking there at number 16, Lachlan Morton. He's in 17th place overall, but they're thinking a little for their man, and that, of course, is Tyler Farrer, who got himself the victory yesterday. On the far side, the ever-popular Jens Voigt, with Timmy Duggan, the American national champion here, in the red, white and blue with the stars on it. Jens Voigt, very, very popular at the start. He rooms with one of the younger riders, Bob Jungels, a former world champion at the younger level of the sport, and many people at 20 years of age reckon he's going to be the next big star for Luxembourg cycling. There is Michael Rogers, 5th overall at 55 seconds. He's done nothing wrong at all so far. He transferred during the winter season away from Team Sky, where he was an integral part last year of the victory of Bradley Wiggins in the Tour de France. And towards the latter part of his career, I think he said to himself, well, I've got the form. Maybe I'll just try and have another little crack and ride high up in the overall standings at the Tour de France for myself. Or will he dedicate his Tour de France this year to one Alberto Contador, who was his teammate, and back with the 3 leaders. De Kent going to the back, trying to fine-tune his legs for the upcoming Tour de France this year. On the front was Carter Jones. He's the man who looks very much set to win this Nissan King of the Mountains competition. He got maximum points over the first climb of the day, and now they're just looking to hold on to as much of their advantage as they can. But it's now come inside of the 3-minute margin. Taking a little bit of a battering from the wind here this afternoon. As we can see, the slight, well, this number 13, this is Caleb Fairley. He's not too happy with that number 13, and instead of having his number upside down, in fact, he's decided to put his race number on his bike upside down today. Well,
Trying to reverse the luck, I guess. But yeah, the team here have been back to the team car. The team in Cannondale have been back, and they've taken back with them number 51, Peter Sagan, to chat with the team leader. And apparently they've been discussing the finish, so they must know about it, Paul, and how they're going to cope with it. But we tried to ask them what was going on. They wouldn't tell us what they discussed, but they were back to discuss this tricky finish.
Well, in this day and age, Phil, of course, Matthias Frank, a silent man there, well up in the overall standings, 4th overall. He looked after his team leader, TJ Van Garderen, on the climb up to the tramway. But coming back to the discussion of Peter Sagan, Phil, in this day and age with cell phones and mass communication, the team management, they will always have somebody at the finish line, and they will telephone back the information to the team car, and then they can discuss it. And they can't discuss it over the race radios in this event, because race radios are not used, so they have to go back to the team manager to get that information. I'm sure they've been told, get around those final 2 corners inside of the top 5.
Yeah, it's a real finish that you must know about, otherwise it will catch you out. Incidentally, Robbie McEwen, who retired last year, but he's still retained by the Orica Green Age boys, his job now is to go and check out the finish lines of the stages of the Tour de France and the like, and the Tour of Italy, and he films them. He goes early morning, films the finish onto video, and in these days he files it back to the team, who are watching on their computers on the team bus minutes before the start of the stages. So they see a physical picture of the running filmed on the helmet of Robbie McEwen, and he then advises them where they must be if they want to get their men across the line first in those sprint finishes.
Well, in fact, it was at this race last year that Robbie McEwen retired from the sport, but he still remained very, very competitive. He went on to win a race in Singapore, and in fact he won a race in Noosa Head towards the end of last season in small criterium, which is very, very popular towards the end of the year. But Robbie McEwen, in fact, when he was racing, He always used to study the sprint finishes, even his own sprint finishes. He would take back a video of the finish of a race. He would look to see how he'd won the race or how he'd lost the race, and try and use it for future events. So much was he very interested in the technical approach to the final sprint up towards the line. And that information and that knowledge he's now trying to pass on to the younger riders of Orica Green Edge.
No surprise, Garmin, Sharp, the team of Tyler Farrar, now put 2 men up in the front. Now, as you can see, we're getting into the exposed part of the course now, away from the ocean, which, as we're looking here, is on the left side of the riders, but some considerable way on the left side of the riders. The wind is getting in now and hitting the riders. This is going to hurt the 3 leaders.
No, it's a real strong wind that's starting to buffet the riders, and they've been away, let's not forget, from the get-go, from the gun. As soon as the neutralized flag was brought in, the 2 riders in 2nd and 3rd position went out on the attack. They were joined very quickly by Carter Jones. But, you know, it's a long stage today, 185 kilometers, 115 miles of racing. And you can almost see the way these guys are pedaling at the moment. They are struggling to battle against the wind. And it's reflected in the average speed, because the average speed of the stage so far is only about 22 miles an hour.
Yes, it is. And it's gone up now. It's 23.5 now, which is a lot better. But I have to say that the Bissell team of Carter Jones, they have put a man in the leading breakaway every day so far since we started down in Escondido. And this is the important man as far as the team is concerned today. Carter Jones increasing his lead in that Nissan King of the Mountains competition. We're looking at all of the teammates here of the James Hagen's Berman team, and they've lost 2 members of the team. JJ Haido and Guido Palmer have had to retire from the race. But the rest are trying to do their best to protect Acevedo. Tomorrow he's on his own in the time trial. He'll have to produce the goods to stave off TJ Van Garderen in 2nd place.
There's the winner of yesterday's stage on the far side in the blue helmet, Tyler Farrar. Very happy to get that stage victory, and I think very happy to get that lead out. But it wasn't supposed to be a lead out for him, but Ken Hansen was the man that Optum Kelly Benefits were trying to get to the line in 1st place. And because Tyler Farrar didn't have any teammates around him, he used the lineup of the American Continental squad to get himself in a good position to get himself the stage victory. And I have to say, when you looked at his face crossing the line, he was fairly elated with that win.
Yes, and the first win it was for a rider in his home tour, for as far as Tyler Farrar was concerned. He's won all stages in all of the Grand Tours, Spain, Italy and France, but never won here in the Amgen Tour of California. Well, he has now. Well, 1 or 2 are managing to smile and grimace at the same time here. Francisco Mancebo, the middle of those 3 riders in red. He was in the points. He was over the top of the mountain in 4th place today. Still holds a high overall position in 6th as they continue to try and decide to chase these boys down. In the distance, looks like lead car lights in the distance.
Yeah, those are the motorbikes coming across, but I think this is what is going to be the big problem for the peloton here this afternoon. The wind is now starting to rise. In fact, a little bit further north in the state, it was reported this morning in and around San Jose that the rain was coming down and the temperature had dropped down to 12 degrees Celsius, although it is forecast to lift for tomorrow for the very important individual time trial. Sprinters teams putting 1 or 2 riders up themselves to help out in the pacemaking. And I have to say, hats off to James Hagen Berman squad, the squad for the overall leader, Hanya Acevedo. They've done everything right to look after him since he got the overall lead. He's a very, very good professional rider from Colombia. And in fact, the Colombians are starting to ride in the 1980s. They disappeared a little bit from the international circuit in the 90s, but now coming right back up to the top of the sport. Now there you can see in the distance, just because of the long length of this big wide road here, the 3-man breakaway, it's down to just about 2.5 minutes, the overall lead. And as I mentioned, this really is quite remarkable, this whole valley right the way up to San Jose. The 101, if you take the Highway 101 right the way up through this part of the world, there's agriculture the whole way along it for at least 400 miles or almost 600 kilometers of transfer. Looking here at Feng Chun Kai, formerly a national champion of Taiwan. Looking back like that, they can see that the main field is starting to bore down upon them, and they won't be too happy with that after the effort that they put in. Moving out the team cars out of the way very shortly. The race referee will start to clear out that gap behind them. In fact, very strange accident yesterday. A couple of riders from NetApp, because of the dryness of the race yesterday, there was a small dust devil, a small mini tornado, if you like, started to develop. It went straight through the main field and threw two riders from Team NetApp down to the ground. A really weird and bizarre accident. I think everyone, Phil, is a little bit nervous because of these weather conditions and the wind which is starting to buffet the main field.
Just take a look at those sprays blowing right into their faces now. This is a bit of a grind, to say the least, as they continue. It'll be interesting if that gap does come down. They're not riding much more than 21 miles an hour at the moment. About 33, 34 kilometers an hour is all they're doing. Matt Bramier in the green jersey is champion of Ireland, passing through.
Well, he nearly created a bit of a surprise yesterday, because he took the shortest way around there and all of a sudden found himself in the lead. And it was a hard chase by the teams of the sprinters to finally pull him back into the fold.
Yes, you can tell now, though, that these boys aren't having much of a conversation now. This is just get on with the job. Now, there's confirmation now. That is all they're doing now. That's less than 32 kilometers an hour into this headwind. So imagine what it's like for these three riders, who are heading towards the first sprint of the day, second sprint of the day at Guadeloupe. And Orcott is behind us now.
Really is battering the riders. If you just look at the rider on the front here,馮俊凱, he really is suffering just to keep the legs ticking over, and it's because of this wind which all of a sudden is blowing right the way down the valley. Normally the race goes from north to south, so they generally pick up a prevailing tailwind, but the organization this year decided to start right down in the bottom of the state, around the outskirts of San Diego and Escondido. But the risk was that they were going to get this prevailing headwind, which could slow the race down on a number of occasions. The wind, though, Phil, will not be a factor, I don't think, coming down to the finish line here in Villa Beach, because of the fact that we come down a very fast valley descent, and then we're straight into the outskirts of town.
Well, Thomas de Gent was the winner of the first sprint, but it really wasn't a sprint at all at Orcott, at the 71 miles point of the race of the day today, 114th kilometre in. Because these boys aren't really featuring in the sprinters competition. And it really is a sprint competition rather than an overall points competition in the Amgen Tour of California, because there are certain days when points are not awarded at the finishing line. In fact, on 3 of the stages, sprint points not awarded, but they are today, as Peter Sagan has no doubt noted.
Again, it's Feng setting the pace, dropping to the back. These riders are doing much shorter turns in this breakaway group now because of this very blustery headwind they're picking up, maybe just around about 50 meters before swinging to the back. You can see the rippling vegetation just over to the right-hand side, and anybody who wants to have a chance of getting a victory there this afternoon will have to ride fairly well in that main field. The order of the day really is to hide from the wind on a stage like this. I just noticed the 5-hour energy team of Francisco Mancebo. They're sitting a little bit further back. These are dangerous moments as well, because if they pick up a crosswind and one of the teams, especially a team like Radio Shack, we saw them try that yesterday on the running towards the finish. They start to get themselves organized in this echelon formation at the front. You could see a number of riders getting eliminated out of the back very quickly, which is why over on the right-hand side, Team BMC Racing, what they're trying to do is they're trying to protect their overall leader, and that, of course, is TJ Van Garderen. He's in second place in the overall standings behind Hanier Acevedo. And Acevedo's team, J-Mist, they're doing a very good job of keeping the yellow jersey up to the front end of the pack as well, because for them, this is a very important day. Look at the dust that's being whipped up there by this unbelievable wind we're picking up.
Well, the rider's not too anxious to get up to the front. These boys at the back, Paul, because that headwind is really hurting them now. Vacansoleil are getting in the mix, but they're trying to slow it down in those light blue jerseys, because they've got their rider Thomas de Gent up front. Meanwhile, not the way of Amigo Farmer Quick-Step.
Watch it. Watch out for this. This is a typical tactic of Team Radio Shack. Once they start to get a right-hand wind coming like they're getting at the moment, they form a little echelon at the front end of the main field. They've done this so many times. An echelon is a diagonal line of riders, so that when you've got the wind coming from the left-hand side there, you're sheltered at 45 degrees from your own teammate. And what it does, it puts everybody else at the back. And you can see how it stretches out into a long line. What's happening now, they're all looking for a little bit of shelter from the wind, but there isn't any.
Yeah, it's mainly head, but it's slightly cross at the moment, and the riders deciding to choose this to see if they can liven the pace up just at the moment, and realizing the effort being made by Radio Shack. Cannondale are sending the troops up in those lime green jerseys as well, because take a look at the middle. There's a few riders with tired legs there.
Well, the thing is, you've got to recover very, very quickly from this. As soon as you see that smaller line of riders starting to form, you've got to move over to the left-hand side, which is exactly what the riders in the red and black jerseys did of BMC Racing. They felt that this was a dangerous moment, so they've got themselves and TJ Van Garderen up to the front end of the pack.
Quite right. The boys in red looking after Van Garderen, keep him in the right position. You never know when the peloton will split, when pressure goes on like this. Jens Voigt just passing through our picture. Other riders, especially from Orica Green Edge here, looking at each other, saying, what are we doing here? Tinkoff have come through. They've lost a man today, those blue jerseys. An echelon, of course, is when these riders will form these diagonal lines, and they'll change away from the wind. They allow the wind to push them into the line. They drop behind, and then they come back to the front again.
Well, if you've never actually been in a situation like that, Phil, it's very difficult to explain how difficult it is if you're not in that echelon, that diagonal line of riders. You see riders scuttling down the opposite side of the road, trying to get some shelter from the wind. The yellow jersey here has got his teammates alongside him. They'll have to pull him right up to the front as quickly as possible. And in fact, he's sitting a long way back in this situation.
Yeah. This is a very interesting move, but all of a sudden the pressure's gone. The wind is coming slightly from the right-hand corner of your television set at the moment, hitting the side of the riders and their noses. So they might, we're going straight through. I'm going to say if we change direction here, then that would have caused it. Those are the three leaders down there. Let's have a look as we pull back. Always a bad sign for the breakaway when our helicopter does this. And there is the main field being pushed onto the right-hand side of the road.
Well, I tell you what, look, just looking at the time gap there, Phil, it's really been slashed very dramatically, and all of a sudden it's down to, they're saying officially 1.5 minutes, but I think it's close to the 1 minute mark. Now, this is a real echelon now that's forming. You've got big names in the front there. I noticed that Michael Rogers was very, very attentive, and once you start to get the second echelon, then you've got to make sure you organize yourself very quickly. In that move, in the first red and black jersey, you can see that's Thor Hushoff. Just a little bit further behind him was TJ Van Garderen. He was being very attentive, but so too was Michael Rogers, the Australian.
And so too was Peter Sagan, right on the sharp end of that race. He sensed that was going to happen for sure. Now we're just under that 900 meters to the sprint point here. The Visit California sprint competition is being contested in Guadalupe. But it's really of no interest to those three riders up front. Just look at the damage the stride place. Now they'll check around. The yellow jersey isn't visible in this forward group.
The Michael Matthews, the Orica Green Edge rider, the sprinter, he's seen this as a place to get himself there. All of the riders in that second and that third group of riders right now, they'll be panicking. They're going, am I going to get back into the race here this afternoon? They're absolutely on the rivet, sitting on the front of their saddles, trying to find a little bit of respite from the wind.
The yellow jersey, there he is, just passing the vehicle, is way out of position at the moment, and he's going to have to hope there's a sudden change of direction and this concertina's back up, because he is in the main peloton while a very elite bunch of riders is trying to go clear.
Well, this looks like Cam Meyer as well from Orica Green Edge. Michael Rogers is a little bit further back. I think the fact that TJ Van Garderen has got Thor Hushoff in this group makes this a very powerful move this afternoon. But there's still a long ride to go to the finish. 54 kilometers of racing. That's about 33 miles left to go.
Three groups have formed because of those echelons. It's like a little piece of untidy string whipping around at the back. These are the leaders as they go through Guadalupe. Little bit of a move here by Chung Kai-Feng as he snatches up the sprints at the head of the field, but it's not so.
Now, Phil, he won't be very far away from seeing the front end of the main field. Jens Voigt and Radio Shack, that's a typical move that those guys look for on days like this when there's a little bit of red wind. Very reminiscent of the rally team from Holland in the 1970s and 80s. As soon as the wind comes, they take advantage of it. Now, you can see here the damage that's being done, and it's quite amazing to realize sometimes that the wind can be the rider's big enemy. There, just at the back of that group, was the yellow jersey. He's in a little bit of difficulty here this afternoon. He's going to have his teammate, even Francisco Mancebo, there in that red and yellow jersey of 5-Hour Energy. He's been caught out by the severity of that acceleration too. This is the panic. You see how that rider there wearing number 88 on his back there, he was a rider from, that's John Murphy. He's one of the sprinters from United Healthcare. He felt that there was the panic of just trying to stay on the wheel of the rider in front. There's 3 riders got into this group from Radio Shack, 3 riders from Saxo Bank, 3 riders from BMC Racing. Now this is a pretty good composition for these riders, but it's a long ride. They've got around about an hour and a quarter to ride to the finish, and once they know that they've put the yellow jersey into difficulty, they may well decide this is an opportunity to put some time between ourselves and the yellow jersey. He is a very, very good climber. I'm surprised to see a move coming like this on the eve of the individual time trial. So they've pulled the team cars off there, you might just notice. So the first chasing group is 30 seconds behind the 3 leaders, and 20 seconds further back is the yellow jersey group. They'll keep this pressure on for a while to see if they can crack the impetus of the main group behind and the yellow jersey. If they notice they're not starting to get to 30 seconds, 40 and 50 seconds, then they will probably desist. But if they start to feel that they're breaking the stranglehold on the group behind them, then they will keep riding like this all the way to the finish. Little words of congratulations coming between Thomas de Gent, Feng and Carter Jones. They know they're about to get caught. They should be able to get themselves onto the back end of that line, because there's plenty of room there. As you can see, that is a typical echelon, as they call it in professional cycling, the diagonal lines across the road. You see how the front line moves to the left-hand side of the road, and once the rider in red there has done his turn, that's TJ Van Garderen, he will slip back, slide back along, and all of the time the riders on the left-hand side of this echelon that we're looking at, they are protected from the wind, which is coming from the left-hand side of the road now. It's a very strong echelon that's formed, and it was all started because of the move coming from Team Radio Shack. Well, there's only about 15 to 20 seconds between them. The yellow jersey, he is on the back foot at the moment. He's if he was in boxing arena, he'd have his back against the ropes, but he just has to stay calm. He has to hope that there's a change in direction, the change in the wind direction, and then all of a sudden he could be able to pull himself back into this race. But I tell you what, Phil, I think there's a few alarm bells ringing.
Well, there should be. Carter Jones has realised his day is to win the King of the Mountain, so here he is, comes back to this second chase group here as they assess. It may be the foreshortening with the cameras, but they look as though they may be crawling their way across this gap. This has been a rude awakening here.
But look at the damage. You see this second peloton here is starting to split into 2 groups again. That's because of the severity of the wind. They'll form a second echelon, then a third echelon. The weaker riders get decanted going backwards.
So there's the yellow jersey. He wasn't paying attention. He should have been ready for this one. He was riding far too far down the pack when the split came. Peter Sagan knew it was going to happen. He's right up there in that leading group. So too Tyler Farrar.
Well, he's having a real difficult time here, Phil, just staying in contact there at the back of that group. All of a sudden, he's lost a number of teammates, and his teammates are the guys that he would need to have to get him to the front end of that line and shelter him from the wind. But the composition of this group leads me to believe that these guys might keep going right the way to the finish. You've got 3 riders from Saxo Bank, you've got 3 riders from BMC, 3 riders from Orica Green Edge. They're going to feel very confident, and they've got the right combination of riders that they want into this move.
And the stage winner in Peter Sagan in that green jersey, the Visit California green jersey, because he just knew it was going to happen, and he's put himself in the right position, and this is a perfect result now. It's also taken a lot of pressure off what would be a most dangerous finish for a big pack of 110 men.
And again, the other thing is, Phil, the man I think who started that move, who thought about that move, was 41-year-old Jens Voigt. He got all of the Radio Shack riders to the front. He would have given a little bit of a nod to them and said, right, come on, hammer down now, and look at the damage they've created in just 10 kilometers of racing.
Yes, I think Acevedo had fell asleep there for a while, because he's thinking of the decision being the big time trial tomorrow, and eased off the gas, and he should have been riding up close, because the split has come and he's caught in the pack. Well,
I must admit, I'm a little bit surprised to see them making that move on the eve of the individual time trial, but obviously every day is a good opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, so as you can see, a little bit of decanting going on there as we start to sort the men out from the boys, the men who've got the courage to fight to get themselves into this echelon. It's Michael Shah there, just moving over to the right-hand side. Behind him, it's Thor Hushovd. Michael Rogers, you can see behind in the blue and in the yellow and blue helmet. He's made the gap here. This is a very, very strong group. Some of the strongest riders in the group. Just over to the left-hand side. Tyler Farah's got himself into that movie. He started off racing in the northern part of France. He likes this kind of racing. This is real typical Belgian style racing in these crosswinds. That group now is slowly starting to prize open an advantage. I make that about 20 seconds, the difference between the two of them. And here's the yellow jersey. He's now trying to recover. He's trying to pull himself back into this race, but he's right at the back end of this next echelon. Vacon Soleil, the team that seemed to have missed out a fraction, number 33. He's been caught out. That's Matthias Frank. He started the day in 4th place, but he won't be too worried about his own position here because he's got his team leader, TJ Van Garderen, in the front group.
Well, there are now moments of concern on all of these faces. You know, when these echelons happen, Paul, you suddenly get a realization that we are in desperate trouble.
Well, 3rd and 4th place overall, well, 1st, 3rd and 4th place overall riders are in this group. Phil Dijkman has also missed the split. It was a split that was almost telecommunicated to happen. Once you start to see a team like Radio Shack massing at the front in a crosswind like that, you know you have to be very, very attentive. BMC Racing, they were ready for it. So too was Michael Matthews. Michael Matthews saw what was happening in that group there, and he made sure that he was in the right position.
Yeah, he's just on the far right, Philip Dijkman there, of the Irish, of the United Healthcare, far right of the road, but they've also been in desperate trouble. This is the group who are trying desperately now to work their way away. But I'll give them something, Paul. They are not giving up this chase. They've realized the importance that they've got to close this gap. And TJ Van Garderen, up at the head of the affairs, has read it right and looks pretty cool here.
Well, what's pretty amazing, Phil, it's an 18-man leading group we're looking at here, and 3 of the top sprinters have got themselves into this move. Tyler Farah is there, Peter Sagan and Michael Matthews.
Which is why everybody gains if this breakaway goes today. We have a new race leader, and the sprinters will still have their day as well. 40 seconds the split.
Well, one of the reasons why Radio Shack have done this, they've also got their man, the man for the overall standings in the move, Mathieu Boucher. So was paying great attention to the words that were uttered to him by Jens Voigt, and he's made the contact too.
There's the 18 riders who have opened up the split now. Sprinters and stayers together.
Well, this is going to be a very, very tough race. They're saying that's a 40-second gap between the leading group of riders and the next group of riders on the road, and there's a little bit of disorganization here. Now you see the riders from BMC Racing, they're putting themselves in the line there, but they're not going through. Now that breaks up the organization of the next group on the road, and they start to lose a little bit of momentum. They'll also lose a little bit of morale as well, as they realize that they're not pulling in to the front end of the race. So the yellow jersey, 131, Javier Acevedo, on a day that should have been a nice, easy day for him to hide in the main field and think about the individual time trial tomorrow. He's been put on the back foot. 47 kilometers. That at speeds like this is going to take them about 1 hour and 10 minutes because they've got that nasty headwind, cross headwind that they've pulled up. This is the second group on the road. That's Sylvain Chavanel just in there for Omega Pharma Quick-Step. Well, the difference between the two groups is currently just locked in at the 40-second mark. Well, that's Francisco Mancebo. There's a number of the top riders in the overall standings here have been seriously caught out by that acceleration. Well, Mitchell Docker has got himself into that group for Orica Green Edge. That's Andy Schleck He got caught out in the crosswinds too there, but I don't think he'd be too concerned about that because they've got the man they want in the breakaway, Radio Shack Leopard, and that of course is Matthew Boucher. And now, well, it looks as if the second and third groups on the road, they've managed to join themselves together, but still there's a long ride to go. And at 40 seconds, I think they'll still keep powering down towards the finish. It's going to be a hard race for anybody, but there's difficult to know which of the teams in that back group there have got the power to try and pull back the leading group. There's Carter Jones, the leader of the King of the Mountains. Well, he got caught at absolutely the wrong time there because he was in the breakaway right from the gun this afternoon, and then all of a sudden when the hammer went down, he just could not get into the wheels. And to win that competition, let's not forget, he's got to ride all the way to the finish. He's got to keep himself in this bike race all the way up to Santa Rosa if he wants to win the Nissan King of the Mountains competition. So Baden Cook, Mitch Docker, Michael Matthews and Cameron Meyer are in this group. So Orica Green Edge have managed to get themselves 4 riders into this leading group. In there for Team Saxo Bank, Michael Rogers. It says Jonathan Cantwell is in there. Well, that can't be right because Jonathan Cantwell is actually abandoned. He abandoned earlier on in the race.
Yeah, absolutely right, Paul. Cantwell can't be in there, but there's no doubt that Tyler Farrer is, and we saw Jens Voigt was the man who started it. Interesting too that this morning well, he's made the move.
But he did also say before the start, Phil, that the most important thing was to look after his team leader, TJ Van Garderen. This is Sylvain Chavanel. He's trying to get across the gap on his own at the moment, and now you can see the gap is starting to extend up to 45 seconds. Peter Sagan is in this breakaway group all on his own. McCarthy's got into the group. Thomas de Kent managed to get onto the back end of the train here this afternoon, having been in that early 3-man breakaway. This is going to be a long, hard final hour of racing here on the 5th stage of 8 at the Amgen Tour of California, as these riders here will not want to give up. There's a whole host of riders in the top positions in the overall standings have missed out on this breakaway.
Well, they're down to 17 now with the dispatch there of Carter Jones. He's dropped back. Orica Green Edge have read it well, Paul. They've got Mitchell Docker, Michael Matthews, Cameron Meyer in there, as well as Baden Cook. So they're going to work to keep this one going. Michael Rogers, former winner of this race back in 2010 for Tinkoff. He's in 5th place at the start of the day, 55 seconds down. He's going to lift himself tonight.
Well, I'll tell you what, Phil, the big losers at the moment are looking to be Hanye Acevedo, Phil Dijkman, Matthias Frank, but he won't be too concerned because he's got TJ Van Garderen in the group. Francisco Mancebo, he's missed out as well. There's some big names who are well up in the top 10 in the overall standings, got blown away because of this acceleration.
Thomas de Gent, the wily old Thomas de Gent, who was in the break all day, is still hanging on in there, although I think he would like it to slow down. But Optum Kelly Benefit Strategies have put Alexander Candelario in there, and that's a good move for them too.
Now Omega Pharma Quickstep, they've missed out on what is a very big breakaway, and they've realized now's the time. Oh, there's a problem for Tyler Farrer now. He was in the leading group of riders. He's got a back flat tire. He's waiting for the team car. The team car's there, but it's going to be very hard for him to get back into this group, especially at speeds like this.
Absolutely. This is most unfortunate, Tyler Farrer, but they got a great bike change. You see, they chose not to give a wheel, but rip a bike off the top. Now, to chase it on your own with this speed, is on this group is on the attack, is going to be very difficult for Tyler Farrer. He didn't need that sort of luck.
And he definitely did not need that kind of luck, but I'll give the hats off to the mechanic there. The mechanic was very quick. He made that very quick decision to get in there rather than try and change a wheel, bike off the roof, straight to the rider, and then he pushed him off again. He's got to get himself across a gap of about 15 to 20 seconds with the time that he lost there through that bike change. And bear in mind, this breakaway is just forming, so there are not very many cars behind. I'm actually surprised that the racer referees allowed the Garmin Sharp car and the BMC racing car across this gap quite so smartly, because the gap is only at 45 seconds. Normally, they would only let the cars in if the gap had got itself right the way up to the 1 minute margin. 1:43. And this is Antoine Duchesne from the Bontrager squad, they realise that they've missed out quite heavily here this afternoon as well. But it's a difficult call here with just 3 men to ride across a gap of 45 seconds, especially when you've got the power of the men in that 18-man lead group. Now, Farah. Oh, look at this. This is an unbelievable ride by Tyler Farah. I didn't think he'd get back quite that quickly from his flat tyre.
Well, I guess the adrenaline was pumping, and that's why he's come straight back. It was a great bike change. Good decision not to change the wheel. He's back. So there is some of the riders here. There's one rider which is a wrong name. We'll try and work it out. But Jens Voigt, Mikel Irizar, Farah are in this group. TJ Van Garderen, Thor Hushoff, Michael Shaw, Baden Cook, Mitchell Docker, Michael Matthews, Cameron Meyer, all Orica Green Edge. Peter Sagan is on his own. No team up with him. Michael Rogers is here with a teammate in Jurgensen. Jay McCarthy, Thomas De Gendt hanging on, and Candelaro. Those are the breakaways.
Tyler Farah, Phil, there was very, very lucky that his team car managed to get across the gap. The team mechanic, I think, deserves a pint tonight because he made the right decision there. A very, very quick decision to take the bike off. And very often, as a point of notice, when you've got a team leader like Tyler Farah, the team leader's bike is usually on the mechanic's side of the car. So the mechanic had his bike ready to get there. As soon as he saw that his rider had stopped, he was out of the car, bike off the roof, and he probably never lost more than 10 seconds.
Well, this is Sylvain Chavanel. He's realised the miss and the danger of this miss. Now they're trying to put matters right, and so too the 2 riders here from Bontrager, Antonio Duchesne and Jasper Stuyven, because for the first time since this race begun, Bontrager haven't got a rider in the front group.
Yep, but I don't think they're going to get across. So we've got an 18-man leading group, but these riders now have been left behind.
There's 17 now. We dropped Casper Jones. He's gone back, but the 17 men are up here, and we've got 3 riders trying to get across. Omega Pharma Lotto, here they are, but they're not going anywhere from the peloton, who's trying to hang on to them. 2 riders from Bontrager, but not Lawson Craddock, who's the best placed young rider. He's still in this chase pack.
Well, this will be a long, hard chase. 25 miles now to go to the finish at 40 kilometers. It's still locked in at 45 seconds, but the question is, are there any teams of the guys who've missed out on this move this afternoon strong enough to pull back that 17-man leading group?
Well, there's the long pack there now, and they're not out of this race. They are fighting back if they can.
Well, there, 137 is a teammate of the overall leader, Jaime Acevedo. They will have to try and get themselves organised. They'll get a little bit of help from some of the other riders who've missed out on the move. A 5-hour energy by Kenda. They've also missed out. Their man, Francisco Mancebo, who was in 5th place in the overall standings. He missed out on that move here this afternoon, and he's going to have to do something very special with his team to try and get back into the race. But this is the big loser on the day, on a day when he could have expected to sit nice and comfortably in the main field, to concentrate on conserving as much energy as possible for the individual time trial tomorrow. And then all of a sudden, in the crosswinds, Radio Shack came up and put the hammer down. So there's another group a little bit further back, 2 minutes in arrears. So now back with the leading group. Number 64 here is Jonas Jorgensen on Team Saxo Bank. This man all on his own. Where's number 51, leader of the sprint competition, Peter Sagan, but he saw the danger and managed to get himself into the right position once that echelon started to form across the road. In this group, though, 2nd place overall, Van Garderen. 5th place overall, Michael Rogers. 8th place overall, Matthew Boucher. And also in there as well, Cameron Meyer. So Cameron Meyer will find himself moving up quite high. Jens Voigt has seen this as a very big chance to move his man, Matthew Boucher, up higher in the overall standings. And he will not give up at all. He sees this as a fine opportunity. Any opportunity is a good move out on the open road. And there's a lot of firepower in that breakaway, but it's still locked in at 45 seconds. Sorry about that little bit of picture breakup. It's caused when the link from the motorbike up to the helicopter and down to the finish line gets interrupted, usually by the trees that we've just seen down there. This is the group of the yellow jersey. Alarm bells ringing for some of the top men in the overall standings. First, third, fourth, sixth and seventh place riders in the overall standings at the start of the day have missed out on this move. But there is big firepower in that 17-man lead group. Well, the one advantage, if they do stay clear and it's only the 17 men charging into the finishing town of Avila Beach, then it will make it just that little bit safer, because if all of the riders in the race came into town together, it could be rather treacherous. There's the yellow jersey. All he can do now is just cross his fingers and hope that something happens and it all comes back together. But if you look at the faces of these riders, they've got a job in hand to do. Michael Rogers has got 2 teammates in the group with him. They will be very, very keen to do the pacemaking, because they know that Michael Rogers, at the end of the day, if this breakaway succeeds, Rogers could move himself up into 2nd place overall. Cam Meyer could see himself move up a little bit further as well. Also in this group is Matthew Boucher. 50 seconds now. They're looking for the magic 1 minute margin. That was the second group, just a little bit further back. 50 seconds. I think at the end of the day here, Phil, these guys are going to find themselves in a situation when they know they've actually been in a serious bike race.
Well, there's no doubt about that now, Paul, and I have to say that slowly but surely the realization is coming in, and I've seen a few of the riders. The big losers are Team NetApp and United Healthcare. They're shaking their heads back there. Nobody's helping them, but why would they?
Well, that's the situation. If you're put on the back foot and all of a sudden you've got to take the responsibility of the race. We've gone over the high spot of the day today, San Marcos Pass. We're coming down to the final sprint point at Arroyo Grande at 152 kilometers covered. And then it's pretty much flat all the way down to the finish. But the fact is that the big continental teams, Saxo Bank, Radio Shack, Orica Green Edge and BMC, they've got 3 riders each. Although Orica Green Edge have got 4 riders in this group, so they see this as being a very, very big opportunity.
Well, this has been such a tough race, and the strong men will out at the end of a day like this. 1 or 2 thought it would be fairly routine to go, but to go right to the finish for the sprinters, but that wasn't going to be the situation at all today. Once they sensed that wind change, it's made it a very, very good race indeed.
In fact, at the front end of the peloton, it's the youngest team in the race now who've decided to take up the pacemaking. The Bontrager squad, they started the day with their man Lawson Craddock in 9th place in the overall standings, and they realize that this is their only chance now of pulling themselves back up to pull the main field back together.
I'm saying now that the chase has fallen back to 50 seconds. It's almost a minute behind now. That is not good news at all.
So, as we can see now, this is Francesco Monsebo on the front. Started the day in 6th position in the overall standing. They're now starting to get themselves that little bit more organized. You see that lime riders of the line of lime green jerseys of Cannondale. They will sit there just to shelter from the wind, but they will not participate in the chase at all here, because they're quite happy with having Peter Sagan in the leading group. So, 3 riders in this group from Radio Shack: Jens Voigt, Matthew Boucher and Laurent Didier. Tyler Farrar is in the group on his own. For BMC Racing, it's TJ Van Garderen, Thor Hushovd and Michael Shah. Orica Green Edge, it's Baden Cook, Mitch Docker, Michael Matthews and Cam Meyer. Peter Sagan on his own for Team Cannondale in the green sprint competition. Michael Rogers is in there for Saxo Tinkoff. He's got Jonas Jorgensen and Jay McCarthy in the group with him. Thomas de Gent is on his own, also surviving from that early breakaway. Chun Kai Feng from Champion Systems, and getting in there the sprinter from Optum, presented by Kelly Benefits, Alex Candelario. And he'll be saying this is a very nice move for him this afternoon. There's some pretty rapid sprinters, but what we're looking at here is a reformation of the top end of the overall standings. 45 seconds. Mick Rogers, in the back of his mind, probably thinking, I wish I didn't have to work this hard today, because tomorrow is a very important individual time trial over 30 kilometers. But this is an opportunity of putting time between themselves and the men who are in the top acceleration. So we are not too far away now from the next sprint point. This is the town of Arroyo Grande. Used to be the home of the Chumash Indians, who traded with many of the other Native American tribes way around this area. It gets its name from the fact that there was a very wide riverbed here, and the lands have been found to be extremely fertile. So that's probably not the information the riders in the peloton want this afternoon. They want to know, when is this wind going to stop, and when are we going to try and get back to that leading group of 17?
Well, the peloton beginning to show signs of being beaten here now. They're turning off the power. The teams that didn't get many in that breakaway have been left to chase, and the field behind are letting them do it, and they're getting a little bit disheartened now.
Yeah, well, that's what you have to do. You have to keep the pressure on all of the time till you basically demoralize the group at the back. There's NetApp there are looking to the teams behind, their teammates behind, saying, look, guys, we haven't got anybody in that leading group of 17. We're losing everything here this afternoon. Come to the front and let's get the race organized again. But, you know, once you've been slapped in the face a couple of times by that wind, the morale tends to take a beating too.
Yes, and it was no good looking at the riders from Garmin Sharp to come and do the chasing, because they've got their man they want up there in Tyler Farrer, the sprinter. And so they're not going to chase this group down anymore now. Saxo Tinkoff at the front just at the moment with Jurgensen. He's defending for Michael Rogers, who's his team leader, and is improving his overall position tonight, as they're coming now into the Arroyo Grande sprint here. And they're going to go for this because there's a 3-second time bonus as well as points in the Visit California sprint. If TJ Van Garderen gets this, he's tucked in nicely. No, he's not going to get it. Thor Hushoff got it. Michael Rogers tried for it, but it'll be 2 seconds for Rogers. He's done himself a favour.
Well, Hushoff took the time away from Michael Rogers, but Michael Rogers got himself a 2-second time bonus there, but it pulled back.
Time for that one. Who would think after all these days of racing they'd worry about 3 seconds coming off their overall time? But you know, it could be very crucial with the time trial tomorrow. Look at that. Hushoff looking at Michael Rogers, beat him. It took the 3 seconds off him.
A little bit of work, but what that'll do, that'll take away a slight amount of the organization in that group, because everyone is gasping for breath for a few seconds. They need to get organized again if they want to conserve their advantage over the chasing group. Down to 40 seconds.
Well, the crowd may not realize down there they're witnessing a very crucial part of this year's Amgen Tour of California. It's pivotal just at the moment. The main field are still burying themselves, as they say, on their bikes, trying to bring back that breakaway, but they won't get too much firepower from Cannondale back there. Not while they've got their man Peter Sagan in the race lead. There's the big loser at the moment, Hanier Acevedo.
So Hanier Acevedo started the day in the yellow jersey of the Amgen Tour of California, but in the crosswinds he's got caught out in the crossfire, and he's now in a group 40 seconds away from the leading group of 17. There's 4 riders from the top 10 in the overall standings in this breakaway. The man who is best placed is TJ Van Garderen, who started the day 12 seconds off the lead of Hanier Acevedo, and he's got big strong teammates in this group. The peloton hasn't given up yet, and these riders, as they get closer to finish, might start to find themselves losing a little bit of their momentum, as the main field is certainly, because a lot of the big teams have missed out, to want to try and pull this race all back together. Even though the riders like Omega Pharma Quickstep are not looking at a high place in the overall standings, they're thinking about a possible victory for their sprinter Gianni Meersman, who's actually missed out. He was 3rd yesterday. And just to put it into perspective, this is supposedly a flat rolling stage today, away from Santa Barbara up to Avila Beach, but the riders have actually climbed in total 4,000 meters in altitude because of the rolling nature of this course, up and down the whole way. So 30 kilometers, 18 miles of racing. That's about 40 minutes of racing. Well, let's come back to race radio is actually currently saying it's down to 35 seconds. But looking back there, it doesn't look like the 30-second margin to me, because that's about 500 meters. That's Baden Cooks just swung off the front there.
Yes, you can't blame him for that, because now taking up the pace here is Mitch Docker. from Orica Green Edge. We're looking now at Jens Voigt. TJ himself is driving on. He's turning the screw a little bit tighter to hurt Acevedo. As there's Baden Cook goes through as they come up here. Peter Sagan looking very cool, calm and collected, knowing that he's the best sprinter. Oh, and he almost touched a wheel there, and that was would have been goodbye. He almost touched Jonas Jurgensen's back wheel in that line.
Well, there's no real passengers in this group apart from Peter Sagan, who keeps sitting towards the back end of the group because he's completely isolated. If he has a mechanical problem at this stage of the game, there's the main field. The main field, Phil, now are starting to get quite close up to this leading group of 17, and they may well, because of the pressure in the peloton, they may well catch back. We'll see if the race organisers, the race referees, are going to stop the cars over on the right-hand side. There's the peloton. Yeah,
that's what I was thinking. They will clear those cars out. It's brilliant riding here by Team NetApp, who've got themselves organised now. Now, this rider coming through here is just contributing, but he's not driving the pace because he's a teammate of Peter Sagan. But they're showing terrific spirit. They haven't given up yet, and they've got in. There's the cars being stopped on the right of the road to make that void continue. They call it a barrage amongst the cars as they are driving on. Now they may well come back.
Yeah, we're down to one car remaining there, the neutral service vehicle on the left-hand side, and the race referee's car in the rear there. They have got themselves organised, but it doesn't seem to have the same firepower that it had about 10 kilometres ago. And we're going into the slightly more protected part of the course now, away from the buffeting of the wind.
Well, there are 3 riders here on the Saxo Tinkoff team, so Jonathan Cantwell either hasn't abandoned or they have misread his number, but they've definitely got 3 riders in this break. Making 17 front runners. The NetApp boys here shaking heads. Is nobody going to help us? The answer is no, probably not, because they've got all the riders up front on their teams.
I think the other rider from Saxo Bank there, Phil, is Jay McCarthy. So Jonathan Cantwell definitely did abandon earlier on in the race. Just a bit of excitement and miscommunication because of the pressure of what's happening in the race here this afternoon.
Well, they're not easing up at all in the chase, but you see the teammates of riders in that front group are getting in amongst the chase here now, trying to disrupt it, really. They want to see that breakaway disappeared onto the horizon, really. But the gap is 35 seconds, so they've certainly improved.
But as long as these riders still have a 15 or 20-second advantage, they will keep working like this, hoping that they will break the stranglehold of the chase of the main field behind them, because they're doing damage to the top end of the overall standings with a move like this. Michael Rogers stands to move up into second place in the overall standings if this breakaway stays off the front. Another 5 seconds has been shaved off the distance between the 17-man leading group and the yellow jersey group behind. Michael Matthews there with the white sunglasses on. Baden Cook, Peter Sagan. This is Thomas de Gent in the pale blue jersey. Thor Hushovd. Tyler Farrer did a fantastic job after a flat tyre. And Candelario, Alex Candelario of Optum Kelly Benefits. Sylvain Chavanel grimacing on the front. He and his team have completely missed out here this afternoon. NetApp have done a little bit of organisation, and they're all trying to get themselves organised to pull back that final 30 seconds. That 30 seconds corresponds to around about 500 metres actually on the road. Cannondale, a little bit surprised to see them going through and working with this. Maybe they're concerned about the fact that their leader, Peter Sagan, may be a little bit isolated in that leading group.
Acevedo has not taken up any of the pacemaking himself, even though he's seeing his yellow jersey at the moment being torn off his shoulders. Team NetApp back at the front. Gap still showing to be coming down to 30 seconds.
Well, if they don't pull it back before 10 kilometres to go, I don't think they'll see this leading group again, Phil, because once we get to around about 6 miles to go, it's pretty much downhill into the town of Avila Beach, and that's when we'll start to see these riders in the leading group start to get themselves smelling that stage victory at the end of the day. Guys like Michael Matthews must be thinking, this is a great ride here this afternoon. The man in difficulty, though, is Janier Acevedo, who started the day in the yellow jersey. I think the only thing that he can do now, Phil, is because his team seems to have lost a little bit of its firepower, just cross his fingers and hope.
That's all he is doing. He's just hoping they pull it back, but at the moment, as you can see, all the work being left is just a couple of teams in this race. But they're doing a good job, let's face it. They're at 30 seconds. Now they're about 25 kilometers from the finish, 16 plus direction, as they race downhill at high speed into the town of Avila Beach. We'll see.
And Matthias Frank is one of those right teammates of TJ Van Garderen. Frank was at 4th overall, looking for 45 seconds. Well, it's actually starting to stretch out again once more, as the organisation is here. It's NetApp doing the bulk of the pacemaking, but the official race radio is telling us the gap has crept back up to the 40-second margin. It all depends on how dedicated those riders are in that leading group of 17 to the success of the breakaway here this afternoon. Jens Voigt, 41 years of age. Cam Meyer, the next rider coming through for Orica Green Edge. Baden Cook a little bit further back. Phil Dignan there on the far side. 3rd overall at the start of the day, looking for 27 seconds. He got caught out in the crossfire as soon as that movement started from Radio Shack. They saw the wind was in the right direction to make the move like that. So now they're sheltered a fraction from the wind. They're trying to get themselves organized again. They know if they keep this pressure on, keep it on for another couple of kilometers, that they may well just break the spirit of the peloton in that group behind, and that's what they're trying to do. They've just got to keep it going. It's Laurent Didier coming through now. TJ Van Garderen in the red and black jersey. You can see this as being a major operation for him on the eve of the individual time trial. Looking back down through that gap there, it looks as if it's starting to stretch again more than the 30 seconds which is being indicated. Jens Voigt is the man who pioneered this move here this afternoon. It took a long time before they started to. 25 kilometers to the finish now. So if we pull back there, we can get an indication of the exact difference between the peloton and the leading group of 17 riders. 20 seconds since they covered the 25-kilometer to go board. A couple of riders in here for 5-hour energy. They're trying to protect the position of 6th place Francisco Mancebo at the start of the day. I have 35 seconds on my unofficial time check right now as we come around the corner looking for that banner indicating 25 kilometers to go, and I make it just actually on 40 seconds. Unofficial time gap, that is. So Team NetApp have not thrown in the towel just yet. They've decided to keep going on here, getting some help from the young squad from Bontrager. They too proud young team, this, with an average age of just 20 years of age. No fear at all of the reputations of the World Tour squads.
It can only have been a little bit of inexperience that they never put a man in that split when the wind changed direction, because in all honesty they've had a man in the breakaway every day so far, and this is the day they really needed a man in the break, and it hasn't happened for them. Lawson Craddock, who sits 9th overall, best placed in the young riders jersey, is about to lose that position if he doesn't reshape.
No. Michael Rogers making a good operation here too, number 61. 5th at the start of the day at 55 seconds, but as far as he's concerned, if this breakaway can survive with the time gap that it's got at the moment, Michael Rogers will move up into 2nd place in the overall standings.
TJ Van Garderen, he almost looks as though he's relishing this, doesn't he? He's not under pressure. He knows he's pulled a great coup here by getting away from the race leader. He's behind him by 12 seconds overnight. Now he's in front of him on the road. He'll be the next logical leader of the Tour going to the time trial tomorrow, which means as leader, last man to start, and last man to start knows exactly what everybody else is doing on the road. Big advantage.
Orica Green Edge have done a very good job here as well, Phil. They managed to put 4 riders into this leading group, and Michael Matthews must be licking his lips a little bit, but wondering, can isolated in that leading group of riders, and he's got to wonder what he's going to have to do. But last year in the Amgen Tour of California, he won his stages, the first 4 stages, any which way he wanted to, from the front, from the back, from the middle. He's such a versatile professional bike rider.
Well, I can tell you, Paul, it's not as warm as that today. It's pretty chilly out there. It's below 70 degrees Fahrenheit at the moment. There's the peloton, but now there's another big bunch behind the peloton. They're now over 3.5 minutes behind, by the way. This isn't the complete field here, and the poor team from NetApp are being left to do all of the driving, and the gap may start to open again here. Jens Voigt is certainly not slowing down.
Yes, as they say, Phil, big Jensi, he doesn't take any prisoners in a breakaway like this, and he realizes this is a good operation for his team as well, because this could move up Mathieu Boucher into 3rd place in the overall standings at the end of the day, on the eve of the individual time trial, and then the day after that, the summit finish to the top of Mount Diablo. I've stretched it out again now. It was a real show of determination. This leading group is starting to stretch that gap out once more up to the 50-second mark. Going to be a serious change in the overall standings, because only 4 riders in the leading group are within a minute of the overall leader.
Well, United Healthcare and Team NetApp, the very similar colours at the moment, have the most to lose here. 1 moment's inattention and it's left them chasing, and the gap is opening now to nearly a minute.
Yep, I think they're starting to break the stranglehold, starting to break the courage and the morale of the main peloton, because once you've been chasing like we've been chasing like this for about 40 minutes, Phil, and now all of a sudden, when you can see that gap staying at the same point, it starts to eat into your mind, saying, I'm wasting my energy here, I'm not getting anywhere, and you start to not try as hard as the riders in the leading group. The riders in the leading group will see that they're starting to build up on their advantage again, and they will be egged on by the fact that they're looking at success.
Yeah, you can just see here, you see they're bringing more and more riders up, but there are other teams in there who are missing out and they're not contributing to the chase, and they really should perhaps think about doing that at the moment. These boys are driving now. They know that they could well be stitching up the leaderboard tonight in the Amgen Tour of California, with the time trial at Mount Diablo on Saturday, then the big finish down in Santa Rosa. So far, we've covered 102 miles. That's about 167 kilometers that they've covered today.
Just going through there, number 2, that was Mathieu Boucher, Baden Cook, Cam Meyer for Orica Green Edge. Orica Green Edge were very attentive when they saw that move developing at the front from Team Radio Shack, and so too would BMC, because as soon as they saw that moving, they scuttled up the left-hand side of the road to get themselves right into the front. So TJ Van Garderen looking over his shoulder, waiting to see whether or not Peter Sagan was going to come through. Sagan, I think, here playing a little bit of a crafty waiting game, because he knows that he's actually theoretically in the tactically inferior position, because he hasn't got any teammates up there alongside him. So he realizes that the most important thing for him is to make sure he stays in the group but doesn't take too many risks.
Well, keep a close eye on these leaders. Race direction is still saying, but they are still saying he is part of that leading group, and yet they did announce his abandon earlier in the day, which is what we think has happened. So there's the race leader. How the world has turned around for him in about 45 minutes of this race, because he was riding smoothly to the finish, no worries until the time trial tomorrow. And now he's on the defensive, and at the moment out of the yellow jersey, and this is the new leader of the race, TJ Van Garderen.
It's just touched the 1 minute advantage now. I think the main field are out of it this afternoon. The firepower and the fire in their bellies, I think, starting to disappear from the battering they took in the wind as they tried to keep in contact with that 17-man lead group. The 3 riders in the leading group for Team Saxo Tinkoff are Michael Rogers, Jonas Jorgensen and Jay McCarthy. Jonathan Cantwell, we saw the injuries that he had on the crash, from the crash that he had on day 2. He pulled out early on in the stage. In fact, the race organisation are not mentioning the fact that Mathieu Boucher is in this leading group, but I've seen him there definitely wearing number 2.
You're absolutely right, and I think that's they've seen 62, which is Jonathan Cantwell. In fact, it should be rider number 2.
Well, the team cars going across up to the front end of the group now to have a quick chat with their team riders, just to explain to them what's going on, the fact that the gap is now very, very manageable. But it should be quite a good sprint anyway, Phil, because we've got some very good sprinters in this group, because guys like Tyler Farrar, and I think he owes a round of drinks to his team mechanic tonight, because that was a very, very quick change Jean Lelong is the man in the team car there for BMC Racing, having a chat to Thor Hushovd.
He could win today, Thor Hushovd. Now he's done his first job, which was to make sure that TJ Van Garden's in the break. He said this morning that was his first job, was to look after TJ. His second job was he fancied winning the race today. Well, the reason, in a perfect position.
The reason he could win the race today, Phil, is because it's not going to be a big bunch sprinter coming into the finish. Because it's a smaller group, it's definitely a Thor Hushovd type finish with that climb up to the finishing line. Mind you, if you cast your mind back to the first road stage of the Tour de France last year, it was a slight uphill finish as well, and a certain Peter Sagan got across the line in first.
Indeed. Well, he's got one win under his belt this year. Happened in February in France in the Tour du Var. We'll see. It's a good finish, not for a pure sprinter, as you will see as we get down into the finishing town today. Camera pulling back from the leaders, and this is what the gap looks like. It's almost a minute. In fact, they're now saying it's exactly a minute. It's difficult to say if that's right. Going into the nearby airport at San Luis Obispo as the riders continue to race towards the finishing line down the road about 8 miles away at Avila Beach.
Well, Phil, now that the race referees are starting to let all of the team cars go by, they believe now that that breakaway is seriously established. That breakaway, all team cars to go across that gap to look after their riders in case they may well have a mechanical problem on the run in towards the finish.
Now the road swinging round a little bit to the left here, continuing the change of wind direction. You just watch the peloton. It's like a piece of rubber. It just blends in and out with the wind direction. 3 riders trying to get off the front of it at the moment, but up here at the front of this, we've got Mitch Docker setting the pace on at the front. We've got Jens Voigt just behind him. The workhorse is on Saxo Tinkoff, working for Michael Rogers, who comes from Canberra in Australia, and is showing some good form here today, having won this race back in 2010.
But it's still going to be the sprinters who are in this group, Phil. There's some really rapid guys. Obviously, Thor Hushovd wants to get the win, but my question still is, how are they going to beat Peter Sagan? Because it's a tricky finish, it's an acrobatic finish, and we've seen him. He's come from a background of being a BMX rider, a cyclocross rider. He knows how to handle his bike. He'll throw it around that final corner with 200 meters to go, and I'm sure he's got the acceleration to survive to the top of this climb. But if you get it wrong and you start to falter a bit and you've got it in the wrong gear going up to the finishing line, you could make a mistake.
Well, that's just what the 5-hour Energy team have done there, because they were heading up the chase bunch, and that was Francisco Mancebo, who was lying in 5th place overall, and he's losing that now. And judging by the way they were riding, they were losing a little bit of their impetus as well. TJ Van Garderen, as he continues here in a very, very select group now. They're inside the last 20 kilometers, well, approaching the last 20 kilometers, or 12 miles to the race, as they continue on, as Mitch Docker passes through nearest camera on the right. Still a good working line, this, no worries at all. Michael Matthews still up near the front as well. He's a very good sprinter, as we saw the other day when Sagan won. Matthews thought he'd done enough to win that stage. Happy applause briefly through the population. It's not a big populated area, this. It's all ranches and vineyards as we race towards the finish.
10 miles now to go to the finish. I've got 18 riders in that leading group, because in fact I have to say the rider from Champion Systems who was in that early breakaway, Feng Kai, he's managed to survive as well to stay in contact with the leaders.
So there we are. This is the chase group here as they continue to work. Now Lewin also in the blue. It is United Healthcare. They've got the front of this peloton now. They've forming an alliance here. We've all got to work together to catch that breakaway, and all the other teams lining up behind them and just enjoying the ride. Well, enjoying is probably the wrong word right now.
Well, race radio now, Phil, just going to get a little bit of clarification. And finally, what we said a little earlier and identified Matthew Boucher as being in that leading group with Jens Voigt. It's also Mirkel Irizar from Radio Shack who's got himself into the move.
Yes, there's a very, very nice group of strong riders here, and it took to day 5 to discover who the strength was of this year's Amgen Tour of California. They're not going to throw this away without a real fight now. Michael Schaar bringing through BMC. Then comes Jonas Jurgensen. These are the workers now. These are the boys trying to help their men climb up the overall classification, and in so doing helping themselves as well, because they're free of the peloton. TJ Van Garderen not afraid to distribute himself either around this front group as he comes through. He started the Tour as the big favourite. He finished second on the climb up the tramway in the Greater Palm Springs, left behind by Javier Acevedo by 12 seconds on that vicious climb. But of course he was very happy being in second. He didn't want to actually be in that yellow jersey. It makes you a little bit too conspicuous.
Yeah, but the thing is now, Phil, we're on the eve of the individual time trial, and that would have been the stage where he would have thought about trying to conquer the yellow jersey. But here he's going to take the yellow jersey on the day before the individual time trial. That gives him the added advantage of starting the individual time trial in the last position, and that will give him the time check on all of the riders starting in front of him.
Peter Sagan just keeping his nose clean, allowing the race to do whatever they want to do as he rides along in the front of the group here. Acevedo at the back. He's now 1 minute behind the breakaway.
Well, that will still keep him up in the top 10 in the overall standings, but that's not what he was hoping for here this afternoon. He was hoping to go into the individual time trial as the overall leader. 14 kilometers, 9 miles of racing left to go, and the gap to the main field and the group of the yellow jersey is locked in at the 1 minute margin. We're circumnavigating now. We've been through the final sprint at Arroyo Grande. The riders now are moving away over a little bit of an undulating race, and not too far away from the airport of San Luis Obispo. The town of Villa Beach, a beautiful little town which has got 2 long piers going out into the ocean. Used to be the main port for the city of San Luis Obispo, and it still acts today as a fishing port. And it was named after Miguel Avila, who in fact had a ranch here called Rancho San Miguelito back in 1842. The main field, the riders sharing the pacemaking, keeping themselves moving along, just making sure they don't lose too much time on the running towards the finish. But they will not see that leading group of riders at all again. 37, Marco Pinotti, former Italian time trial champion, 1:31. Started the day as the overall leader, Javier Acevedo. Got caught out in those very, very vicious crosswinds. They really were being buffeted, the riders, in the middle part of the course, right out in the open vegetation of the agricultural land in the middle of Highway 101. Irizar in there, leader of the sprint competition, number 51. In front of him, Thomas de Gent, who was in that breakaway very early on. Number 123 is Alex Candelario. Thor Hushovd, you're thinking about possible victory. He'll do whatever he can to make sure, though, that he looks after TJ Van Garderen all the way down to the line behind him. Tyler Farrar wondering whether or not he can make it 2 in a row. 9 victories so far this season for number 51, Peter Sagan. He'll hope to try and get himself another victory here this afternoon, which will pull him right back up alongside the score of Mark Cavendish, who won the stage of the Giro d'Italia today. Farah loves this kind of racing. It's a very typical racing that you would find in the Belgian part of Europe, and in fact Tyler Farrar spends a lot of his year living just on the outskirts of Ghent. He speaks Flemish absolutely perfectly. Raced for the Cofidis squad when he first turned professional. Been a professional since 2003. Will turn 29 years of age on the 2nd of June. Beautiful shot there. You see the wind now is in a slightly different direction. It's now coming from the right-hand shoulder of the riders, so that's why they've moved the echelon into a different direction.
So they're being pulled along now. We've been coursing for most of the day in a northwesterly direction. And the riders from Radio Shack, Andy Schleck there, trapped in the peloton along with everybody else. But he'll be happy to know that the man that they really hope is going to climb the overall, which is Mathieu Boucher, is up there. And And that's all that matters to this team. They're happy to ride as best they can to the finish. Another change of direction, which alters the impetus of the peloton. But you know, Paul, they've gained 5 seconds in this last stretch of road. And as we speak, they've gained 10 now.
Well, I think what's happened in the front field, they've turned it off a fraction. Bear in mind, tomorrow is the individual title. They don't want to use all of their cards, these riders in the leading group this afternoon, on the road, because they know they have to have a freshness in their legs for the individual time trial tomorrow. Once they get into the next 3 or 4 kilometers, I don't think we'll see too much of a difference in the time changes between the two groups, because we start that very fast descent into Avila Beach.
Yes, and as they continue now to race down towards the finishing line, we're going to see quite a lot of action from this bunch. That change of direction might have inspired them, but just for the moment, the Saxo Tinkoff riders seem to be the most animated up here.
Well, what the reason for that is that what it's doing is it's moving Michael Rogers up into second place overall at the start of the day. Michael Rogers, though, was looking for 55 seconds on Acevedo. So it's going to be touch and go as to whether or not Michael Rogers overtakes Acevedo in the overall standings. But he will, I'm sure, even improve his position tomorrow once he gets to the individual time trial.
And he's already taken 2 seconds on the course today, so he's actually looking for 53 seconds right now. And there are small time bonuses at the finish, so I think Michael will be taking the better part of valor at the finish and staying out of the rough and tumble of the sprint finish.
So I don't think he's going to try and rub shoulders with Peter Sagan, Thor Hushovd and Tyler Farrar. I think he'd just be happy to finish in the same time as everybody else. But he was attentive, he saw the move happening, he saw it forming and made sure that he was part of it.
Now you see, since we've changed direction again, it's yo-yoed out and once more to 55 seconds. This is the peloton we're looking at. There is the man trapped in the cell, and that is Javier Acevedo. He rides along there, clearly not content to ride at the front today.
Back here with the leading group. So it's 10 kilometers to go for the leading group now, and the gap is down to 50 seconds according to Race Radio. But I don't think it's going to change all that much on the run in towards the town of Avila Beach. And a beautiful town it is. A little bit cold, a bit of a nip in the air. So just at the back of the group, having sat there all of the time, Peter Sagan must be trying to figure out what he's going to do. It's going to be quite a good leader, I would say, for Orica Green Edge, because they've got 4 riders in there. Their fast man, Michael Matthews, he's been placed on every stage so far, and he'll be looking to go to the top step of the podium if he can this afternoon. Formerly under 23 world champion, a title that he garnered back in Geelong in Australia a couple of years ago. 10 kilometers to go for the main peloton now as well. The yellow jersey just sitting there, and it's the young Bontrager squad with United Healthcare are doing a fair amount of that pacemaking. United Healthcare trying to protect the position of Phil Dagnan, who started the day in 3rd.
Well, these boys working hard. They have not yet stretched it out, because we're back to a 50-second gap. They are going to, and probably as they sense the finishing approaching, they might even get some impetus in that chase at the back.
Yes, but these guys now, they're about to pick up the downhill part of the course, and they'll go very, very quickly into Avila Beach, and speeds probably approaching 50 miles an hour on the descent. They're not too far away from picking up the downhill part of the course. I have to say, this young team, 20 years of age, the average age of the Bontrager development squad, they have really given everything to try and pull this back. But if you look at the way these riders are in the peloton now, Phil, I think all of a sudden they've said, we'll call it a day. There's no organisation.
No, they shook their heads. They made a bit of a mistake, but they might still come out of it okay, because I don't think the young riders in the competition are in that breakaway. So Lawson Craddock could still be the best of the young riders. We'll see how it comes out. They all made a mistake. They've learned a lot today. These youngsters of 20, there's only 1 or 2, 21 years of age, and that's what it's all about. 50 seconds the gap.
It's coming to the point now, Phil, where this main peloton, which contains 6 of the top 10 in the overall standings at the start of the day, they realise now they're beaten. They tried to pull themselves back up to this leading group of riders. They've chased for around about an hour and a quarter and not been able to pull themselves back to the wheels of this leading group, which has got a lot of firepower in it.
And it all happened 82 miles into the 115-mile stage when Jens Voigt spotted the wind change, alerted a couple of his teammates, and then started to drive, and the split came. Paying attention though, Peter Sagan, TJ Van Garderen, Michael Rogers, Tyler Farrar right up there. The yellow jersey was too far down the line. He may well have spotted that as well. And Acevedo now, I think, will lose his lead tonight. This is the lead group, and just take a look at these faces. They know what they've caused today.
They've been in a bike race. They know that the yellow jersey has been caught out, but you can be certain the sprinter who's got the best advantage here, I'd have to say, is Michael Matthews of Orica Green Edge. He's got 3 teammates up here alongside him. They will have had the finish communicated to them in the team car behind, because it's a tricky run in towards the finish. Inside of the last 500 meters, there are 2 90-degree bends, and I think you've got to go around those corners in 3rd or 4th position at the lowest if you want to dream about winning the stage. Van Garderen, for example, we're looking at here, number 31. He's not thinking about a stage victory here this afternoon, but certainly Tyler Farrar on his own is thinking about the win. Peter Sagan on his own is thinking about the win. But I have to say, once we get closer to the finish, you'll start to see, I think, a lead-out train coming from Orica Green Edge for Michael Matthews.
Well, there is TJ Van Garderen. He's a strong time trialist. Everybody thought he was going to wait until tomorrow to demonstrate his superiority. He's stolen a big march today as the gap stretches now again to 1 minute. This is the main highway 101. We're about 200 miles, 320 kilometers from San Francisco when we come to a halt today. We'll go under the freeway and head down to the finishing line.
The faces of the riders now who are in the main field. This is Champion Systems. They also were in the break very early on, and that's Ryan Roth, who's the Canadian national champion. But you can see, even so, the stretch the main field out into quite a long line. But again, Phil, it's back up to 1 minute and 5 seconds.
A little bit too much too late at the moment, because with those breakaways at the moment, Paul, TJ Van Garderen, if we stop the race now, will be the leader. Michael Rogers will be second. Acevedo, if he can hold this gap, will only slip to 3rd. But Boucher will come up to 4th, and Phil Dygan, he'd go down into 5th from 3rd.
And he was dreaming of a podium position here, and it's been a real bad look. And I fancy a win this afternoon.
Little rise before we drop down to the beach. All yellow jersey destiny. He's lost too much time for that. So no reason for TJ Van Garderen to chase. And you know, Peter Sagan can't really chase because he's got no teammates.
5 kilometers to go for Jens Voigt. Just look at the body language of this man. He fights his machine all of the time. We look a little bit further back there, number 44. He's really putting the hammer down. Very shortly, he's going to come to the downhill part of this course. And if Jens Voigt starts this descent with a 20-second advantage, I don't think they'll see him again.
Well, this is his 8th out of 8 starts in the Amgen Tour of California. The only one he didn't finish was back in 2011. 3 times he's finished in the top 6 as he starts the break here again now. Typical move, and because of his deficit of lost time, no real reason at the moment to chase him. The sprinters are a little bit isolated here. They haven't got teammates to chase him down.
No, they haven't. They're real racers, that man Jens Voigt. I would think I'd expect the chase to come from Team Orica Green Edge, because they've got Michael Matthews in there, and they've got 2 riders. They've lost Mitch Docker, but they've still got Cam Meyer.
Yes, that's absolutely right. They're the boys who will try to keep matters to rights today. And Jens Voigt is going to keep on going. It's all downhill now until we kick up to the finishing line. He's going to clip these corners, shave his shoulder on the tree line, and see if it can work out. And it will be a very popular race win.
Well, a former East German grew up and went to the cycling school in Roscoff before he eventually turned professional for an Australian squad, the ZVVZAIS squad from the Australian Institute for Sport, way back in 1996. He's got a good gap there, and they're going to start to pause a moment here. The riders from BMC Racing, they're more concerned about conserving the time over the breakaway group. But Jens Voigt, all he's thinking about is a stage win.
Yes, and that's what he's already worked out for himself, Jens Voigt. He knows the odds. A sharp right-hand turn.
Well, this now with the right-hand turn is the start of the descent into Avila Beach, and now you can see the move coming from BMC Racing. It's I think it's number 43, Baden Cook, who's jumped out.
Baden Cook, the wily old man on the Orica Green Edge team, former winner of the green jersey in the Tour de France in the early 2000s, 2003 from memory. as he now takes off after Jens Voigt, a rider he knows very well. He knows the danger of this attacking man.
Well, Jens Voigt, look at the way he's hugging the inside of the corners there to take the shortest way around this run in towards the finishing line. There's a little bit of a reaction now starting to come behind Jens Voigt. Voigt will not look over his shoulder at all until he feels the shadow of the men behind him coming into his slipstream. But he's still got a 7 or 8 second advantage.
Sagan, Farah, Michael Matthews, the sprinters have moved to the front, but not right on the front. They want to see if they can just close this gap. They'll hope somebody takes up the chase. Jens Voigt looks over. This is a rider who in his earlier days here has finished 2nd, 4th and 6th overall in this race. But as age has caught up with him now, he's just happy enough to finish the Amgen Tour of California for an 8th year. He's ridden all 8, only once he's never finished.
41 years of age at 2 kilometers to go. Jens Voigt now is looking to get himself into the outskirts of Avila Beach. Once he gets to the kilometer, chance of surviving all the way up to the finishing line here. But look at that grimace on his face. There is no organized chase behind him. There's 2 riders trying to get themselves across the gap, but Jens Voigt, it's actually moving across to his advantage here.
Well, that's Jurgensen here. He's done an awful lot of work just tacked in onto the back wheel of Thomas de Gendt. Thomas de Gendt, the rider in the breakaway all day, has survived in this group, the only one of the 3, and now he's trying to win the day as well, but he needs more.
After a long day in the saddle like this, those 5 or 6 seconds are very, very difficult to pull back. There in the distance, you can see the band over the road. That's the 1 kilometer to go sign, and Voigt is still surviving.
We are running downtown very shortly, then we'll turn with a few sharp lefts as we're heading under the Kenda. 1 kilometer to go. Jens Voigt is going to hit this. He still continues to descend almost to the finishing line. There's a real chance now as we salute the Californian Highway Police there. They've done another great job on the road today, as that this is the chase group and this is the only way you can beat the sprinters, Paul.
All of a sudden the impetus has gone out of the chase behind Jens Voigt. In the back of their minds they've said, we can't pull this man back anymore. He's looking at the left-hand bend here. He's got then 2 more corners before he gets into the last 400 meters. A last little look over his shoulder to check where they are. But Jens, I can tell you, mate, you've got about 7 seconds advantage over these men, and they've not got the power.
Cook is on the front. Thor Hushovd is behind him, along with Tyler Farah, men who thought they would win today. And this man has slipped away from them in the best possible manner. Now we're downtown. These are the right-handers. He's going to see the finish. It's uphill, remember, and it could crack. As a right turn, this is the crucial left-hand corner. 200 meters to go. Jens Voigt is coming up the hill now to the applause of the crowd here. He's won it. He has won his stage. The feeling behind it, it's all over. A brilliant, well-taken win by the man that started the most best move of the race this last 5 days. Voigt wins. Farah, I think Thor Hushovd might have got 2nd. Farah and Sagan over that line.
But the man who started it, the oldest man in the Amgen Tour of California at 41 years of age, is still a racer. I'm not surprised you want to sit down, Jens. That was a fine performance, well timed, right down to the end.
Well, it's worldwide coverage, so his 6 children in Germany will be seeing these pictures of Jens Voigt. Dad has won here today. The battle, of course, is already over for the race for yellow. The timer's already ticked by. The next leader of this race will be TJ Van Garderen. As you can probably hear the police sirens coming in with the peloton as they swing around the bottom bend. Acevedo not taking part, not surprised in the finishing sprint. Matt Brenier brings them home over the line. Oh, does he? Just pipped on the line, I think. That's too much. He was only 12 seconds behind. And, of course, there are small bonuses to be taken in as well.
And there's the yellow jersey just coming in now. I think there was a slight split in the time there as well. He may well have lost as much as 1 minute and 7 seconds. So he will drop down in the overall standings on the eve of the individual time trial. But what a race we've had here today on the road to Avila Beach.
Well, as we go across the famous piers here, there are 3 of them. One of them is 1,685 feet long down here in Avila Beach. It's salute the man here who comes over the line. Tyler Farah, the camera says, just pipped Thor Hushovd on the line, which means that Peter Sagan will have crossed the line today in 4th place.
Yep, good move by Thor Hushovd there, but I have to say, this is going to be a very, very popular victory with the fans. In fact, the last victory that Jens Voigt had was on American soil as well, and that was in the USA Pro Challenge, and that was after a long, long breakaway on stage 4 on his way to winning the King of the Mountains competition. So Sagan was 4th, Michael Matthews 5th, and McCarthy in 6th place. Great race today, a real battle of the wind. It wasn't the hills that made the decision here this afternoon, it was the crosswinds out in the county of San Luis Obispo. It really is a fighter, Jens Voigt. There's the team. Andy Schleck coming up to the finishing line. They're all looking to see if they can find out where Jens Voigt is. Well, I'll tell you, chaps, he's going to be on the podium. So there it is, nestled away right in the bottom there at Villa Beach. And confirmation, Alex Candelaria was 7th, Michael Rogers 8th, TJ Van Garderen 10th, all in the same time after Jens Voigt with 6 seconds deficit. But more importantly, TJ Van Garderen will be the new yellow jersey at the end of today's stage. As he looked back there, this was the moment, 4 hours and 40 minutes in the saddle, by the way. As he looks back, he knows at this point that he can cruise up to the line. He's got the victory that he was looking for. A well-timed move. He hit them very, very hard on a little ramp just around about 5 kilometers to go. That's Michael Matthews on the left. Farah in the middle just gets it ahead of Hushovd and Sagan in the green. So the riders now, once they've brushed up and washed up, will find themselves moving 200 miles to the north for the individual time trial tomorrow. So this is the new overall standings. Michael Rogers in 2nd position at 42 seconds. Jose Acevedo in 3rd at 50 seconds. Matthew Boucher up into 4th place. Philip Dijkenen down into 5th. And Cam Meyer into 6th.
So Meyer's come up from 10th, and I know these pictures are going out to Australia, so that's a nice ascension for Cam Meyer now from 10th place, completing the top 6. Well, I don't think anybody, and quite clearly Hanier Acevedo wasn't expecting a day like today, but the wind caused it. Van Garderen is the new leader of the race, 42 seconds. Michael Rogers, Acevedo slips to 3rd, Boucher 4th, Dijkenen 5th, and Cam Meyer there in 6th place. Mancebo also trapped in the back one, slips to 8th along with Matthias Frank. He's down to 7th. And but Craddock, I think, will keep the best young rider's jersey in 10th place overall, even though he wasn't in the breakaway.
Well, you wouldn't really expect a breakaway move like that on the eve of a very important individual time trial, but this is the man who engineered it, really, with Team Radio Shack. He talked to the team, they went to the front, they split the race into pieces, and he survived all the way to the finish line, and I think he'll be a very happy man this afternoon.
Well, what can you say about Jens Voigt? He pops up, he never gives up trying, he's never lost any of his enthusiasm for the sport, and that's why he's racing into the early 40s of his life, simply because his enthusiasm is just like he was a kid of 18 years of age. That's his 99th win, believe it or not, Paul, so he's got to hang out for his 100th, hasn't he?
Yeah, funnily enough, Phil, the last time he had a victory, it was on American soil in August of last year at the USA Pro Challenge.
And if memory serves me right, that was an awful long breakaway on his own.
That was a crazy long breakaway, and on that breakaway it actually led him to win the King of the Mountains competition as well.
You can't keep a good man down, and Jens Voigt is a good man. That's for absolute certainty. There's the longest pier here, 1,685 feet long. Long way out to go fishing. Long way back into the coffee shops, which there are plenty of those here in Avila Beach. Just on a kilometre of beach here, pure golden sand, tucked in under the hills, and in fact because of that it tends to be a little bit warmer on the off days than the rest of the coastline in this part of California. Showing you the result again. Look at how the sprinters lined up 6 seconds behind him. Farah, Hushovd, Sagan, Matthews, all the top sprinters in this race. Sagan, though, his 4th place will keep him clearly in green, and in fact he'll increase his overall lead a bit there over Luva Vester. He'll probably slip down a bit more because Tyler Farrell will get good points in 2nd place.
Yes, I remember once asking Jens Voigt, you know, why do you go out in these breakaways when very often the breakaways always get caught down towards the end and the race goes down to the sprinters? He said, look, if you go in a breakaway, you might have 1 chance out of 10 of getting yourself a victory. But if you don't go in the break, you've got 0 chances out of 10 of getting yourself the stage victory. He went for the break today, and he went for the move down towards the end there at around about 5 kilometers to go to the finish. He obviously studied the race handbook. He knew what the running was like towards the finish. He knew it was downhill for the last 2 or 3 kilometers. And with the power that this man generates, he knew he could hold on to a 5 or 10 second advantage over the last tricky little corners as we came into Avila Beach. First time the race has finished down here for the Amgen Tour of California. And I'm sure everybody has very much enjoyed it. Well, here we go. This is what he's been looking for. TJ Van Garderen was looking to get himself the new overall lead, and he's got it on the eve of the individual time trial.
Well, a block of cameras looking at TJ Van Garderen. This wasn't a plan today. This happened, and he's got the jersey, I think, a day ahead of when he expected it.
Yeah, but that's a good position to be in, to have it on the eve of the individual time trial, because he will start last man tomorrow in the time trial as he kisses the California Bear. He will also have the chance tomorrow to get the time checks on all of the riders starting in front of him. I hope he wipes that lipstick off.
I think Allison there is just waiting to kiss an American, because there haven't been too many Americans up here in the first places, but now they have one. There's one of the local seals out there. He's not interested.
He's not too much interested in the excitement that's gone on at the finish, and the next man to come up should get a massive ovation, because next we'll be presenting the winner of the stage. And I would say with the fans here in the Amgen Tour of California, the next man to come up will be a very, very popular man, Jens Voigt. He's always available at the start. He signs lots of autographs for anybody. He takes the time. How about that for a big smile? 41 years of age. Brilliant performance by Jens Voigt. That's his 99th career victory. Been a professional. Raced for some of the top teams in the world, Crédit Agricole, Team CSC, Saxo Bank, Team Leopard, and now Team Radio Shack. And it looks as if he was going to get a very special bottle of Pinot Noir, which is well known in this region. Looking out there at the Whale Island, that's covered in a nice resting point for the cormorants.
Or premeditated attack out on the road today?
It certainly wasn't BMC's plan. I think that was Radio Shack's plan. For the longest time, it seemed like a headwind and that nothing was really possible. But then, all of a sudden, we were going, and the wind just changed directions, and it just sort of happened, and it was a split-second decision, and yeah, we got a little lucky.
On a stage that seemed like it was a sprinter stage and for a bunch gallop, generally speaking, seems like you may have taken the biggest step of all for overall victory once we finish up in Santa Rosa.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not over. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, with the time trial and Diablo to come, it's everything's still tight. But you know, if nothing else, I got a little gift to give to my new daughter. This bear here. So.
It seemed like in the closing kilometers, to keep the momentum going in the breakaway, that both you and Michael Rogers came to the front and did some of the pacemaking. Was that a good way to keep the break out in front?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like everyone was chipping in. You know, some of the sprinters were sitting on to trying to save energy for the stage, but everyone else is working together great, and it was kind of like this. It kind of goes that way. If one GC guy stops pulling, then the other ones want to stop pulling, and then people get less motivated, and then it comes back. So all the GC guys there, they did a good job of pulling through.
Well, congratulations and best of luck, TJ.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, definitely. I don't think anyone can take away from the fact that it was that man who instigated the move there from Team Radio Shack. Jens Voigt got all his men to the front. Got to the line ahead of Tyler Farah, second today, and Thor Hushovd, the former champion of the world from Norway, in third position. Well, that was a really well-timed move by Jens Voigt, and that's completely changed the look of the overall standings. And tomorrow we will move further up the coast till we get to San Jose for the very important next rendezvous in the Amgen Tour of California, and that of course is the individual time trial. A time trial over 31 kilometers, finishing with a very nasty climb of around about 3 kilometers up to the summit finish.
Cumulative points wears the jersey at the end of each day. It should come as no surprise.
Well, we've seen everybody. We should now see Peter. There he is, Peter Sagan coming up. He keeps his green jersey. I think when we see the points, he might have even improved it. Only Tyler Farrell will have gained anything of note of him.
Yeah, well, that's a battle that will go right down to the streets of Santa Rosa on Sunday, I would have to say there, Phil. Amazing move, though, by Jens Voigt. And this man, yes, moving away at the top end of the leaderboard. So Peter Sagan keeps his sprint jersey here. He's got one stage victory under his belt. He was hoping to get the win here this afternoon, but he was outfoxed by the oldest man in the race, Jens Voigt, at 41 years of age.
There in the closing kilometers.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, our team, we saw the race developing the way it was. So, okay, the road turns a little bit here, so it's more side when we launch an attack and we go. Managed to have Mathieu Boucher in the break with us, so he moved up in the GC. And I felt like that I'm a little bit stronger than the other guys in the break, but of course less fast than a sprinter, so the only chance for me to win is come here alone. And then we turned around this corner, like just at 5 kilometers to go, there was this little sticky uphill. I said, now or never, now or never. Everybody's hurting, I gotta go now. And I went all in, and it worked. It worked one time again.
Evergreen Jens Voigt, thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you, I'm a really happy man tonight.
I'm certain that he is a very well-timed sprinter. He raced with his gut there and instinct, as he said there, as he came round the corner, saw the little launch pad and said, right, now's the time to go. And he moved. And when Jens Voigt attacks like that towards the end of the race, I think a lot of guys in the breakaway, they probably look the other way because they know to chase him down, it really is going to hurt. So here is the overall standings after the 5th stage between Santa Barbara to Avila Beach. A new leader, TJ Van Garderen. Until tomorrow and the individual time trial, on behalf of Phil Liggett, I'm Paul Sherwin saying goodbye.
Let's go!